Good morning. Good morning. All right. All right. All right. All right. So let's see. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I am so glad you're here with me to learn a little bit more about your own vision and your vision alignment and how important it is to have your core beliefs, your core values aligned with your vision. That is one of the most important things that I can think of right now for us all to have with us, because right now with everything going on in the world, we need to have some inspiration. We need to have some ideas on how we can go forward and understand that it's so important for us not to get lost in all that's going on. Now, we need to recognize that we don't want to bury our head in the sand, but we need to make sure that we're going forward with inspiration, motivation, and all that. So I can't tell you how glad I am you are here on this call today, because we have a special guest. And before we get into that, I also want to talk a little bit more about what it is we have coming up. So we do have a call coming up today at 11:30. Well, this one's at 10. The next one is at 11:30. And we are going to be talking with a gentleman by the name of Matt Haggard. And Matt is one that's struggled with mental illness as well. So I want to make sure that we have him on and have a good conversation with him and talk to him about what he's doing here in his city and how he can possibly help others in the world. So he's working on a podcast that is going to allow him to be able to get out his message to more people and to get more stage time. So, that's an important part of everything that we do in what we're talking about. So getting up in front of people is not always easy, but having the ability to do that, once you have the ability to do that and you have a need, a real concern about that, you want to make sure that you're sharing it as well as you can. So that is why it's so important for us all to understand stage time and stage time. So without any further ado, I want to bring on the king of stage time, Mr. Daren LaCroix. Darren!
Hey there, buddy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for getting up early for us. I know that you're on the West Coast, so these calls are a little bit early.
7 a.m. What? I don't know if you can see this with your one eye, but
what's that say? Oh, Brian's fan. Well, that's nice. I appreciate that. There's a lot. I thank you.
You're welcome.
But I know there's a lot that you have going on, and I know you're very busy with everything. But if you would, I'm going to give you just 2 or 3 minutes, and I'm going to go away for a little bit. I'm going to go back in the green room while you're doing that, and just if you would, tell us your story, because you've got such a great story, and I think everybody needs to hear it. All the people that are online. So, and by the way, if you're online, please put in a hashtag live and tell me where you're coming in from. Also, if you would, share this video out with as many people as you can think of. So that's really where we make this community much bigger. So that's great. But without any further ado, go ahead, Darren.
All right. Well, hey, thank you, Brian. Thanks very much. I was super quiet kid growing up, shy. Everyone told me just stop talking. That's not for you. And when I was 8 years old, I remember just being enthralled with my brother and my cousin, who are very funny, and making people laugh. I just sat there in awe. And I remember distinctly, at one of our Thanksgiving celebrations, big Polish family, at the kids' table at the end, and my cousin and brother, they were recapping Saturday Night Live skits, and they had everybody rolling. My twin aunts, they have this beautiful laugh where they laugh in sync, and it's waff, 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 and you can't not laugh. I remember standing up, wanting to be a part of it, throwing out a punchline, and I hushed my own family. And I remember sliding back into my seat as an 8-year-old thinking, I will never, ever try to be funny again. And that was it. I was done. It was painful. It wasn't my thing. So fast forward after high school, still a quiet kid, but I loved business. I had this passion for business. So I went to 4 years of business school. This was my thing. This is what I loved. And I was looking for trends. I heard trends was a hot thing. You got to get in front of the curve. And so I ended up investing no money, all of my credit, everything I had. And I opened with a partner a Subway sandwich shop in Auburn, Massachusetts, the first one in central Massachusetts. I was so excited. And I thought, if I own multiple stores, that bam, if I could be a millionaire, this would be awesome. Just having one and then building on that and running multiple. Well, long story short, about a year and a half later, they had opened another Subway right down the road from me, and it took my profits off the top, and I had to sell my business at a loss. In fact, I had to get a day job in order to pay my employees so I didn't default on my loan. So I was literally working 9 a.m. to 1 a.m. 7 days a week. And it was brutal. And it was one of the best lessons, the lesson of self-responsibility, because I got mad at everybody else. I was 23. I knew everything. I was mad at everybody else, mad at the landlord, mad at Subway. Bottom line is I bought into the franchise. I bought into the success system. I chose the location. I chose the franchise. A big lesson. One of my buddies had given me a motivational tape of a man named Brian Tracy. And I'm driving down the road listening to this tape, and he said, what would you dare to dream if you knew you wouldn't fail? And I thought about, what would I dare to dream if I knew I wouldn't fail? I would be a comedian. How cool would that be? Make an audience laugh and earn a living at that. That would be the ultimate. And all of a sudden, the little voice of reason said, but that's not you, Darren. You're not funny. That was true, but that wasn't the question. And so I went back to that 8-year-old kid sitting at the table that had a dream. And I just said, you know what? I don't want to live my life with the regret of wondering, what if Brian Tracy was right? What if I could do this? So I made it a pact with myself to not, because I was at such a low point. I had a business loan, but no business, sold it at a loss. So I still owed it. I had college loans, living at home with mom and dad. And I said, what do I have to lose here, really? But I did have a lot to lose if I lived my life with regret. So I said, I'm going to do it once. And I decided, when I told my friends and family about my beautiful dream, they laughed, which was not the response I was looking for.
Not a good laugh.
That was not the response I was looking for. Anyway, they compared me to Jerry Seinfeld, someone who is at the top of their profession to someone who's just thinking about it. If you have that vision and people around you think you're crazy and you're stupid, you might just be on that right path. It's what do people who have been there and done that think? So I said, came from listening to those motivational tapes. I said, let me ask somebody who is where I want to be. So I went to my very first comedy club. I had never been to a comedy club live. And I walked up to the headliner. I built up all the courage I could because, again, I'm still a quiet, shy kid. And his name was Chris McGuire, who was the headliner that night. And I said, hi, my name is Darren. I want to try this. What do I need to do? And he asked me a question. He said, are you funny? I said, no. And he said, good. Like, good? What do you mean good? He said, Darren, so many people, like their friends and their buddies tell them they're funny, but it's one skill set. If you're at home with your friends and family and you're recapping other people's material from funny movies, and if you gave that same funny person a microphone, you put them in front of 100 strangers who didn't know them, he said they couldn't make them laugh. He said that's a different skill set, but that skill set can be learned. I turned into Scooby-Doo. What? He had intention. He handed me an ounce of hope, and he said two things. Number one, you got to go get the book. I'm like, there's a book about stand-up comedy? Well, of course, there's books about everything.
Sure.
If you have that vision, like, who has been there and done that? And what books did they recommend? Not just your buddies who know nothing about that idea, but the people who are in the know. Which ones did they suggest? So he said, go get the book. And it was a book called Stand Up Comedy by Judy Carter. And then number two, he said, you need to go to open mic nights. Watch other people who are just starting out. Well, that made sense. Now I'm comparing me to someone else who's starting out instead of me to Jerry Seinfeld. That's a difference. Don't blow it by your own self-belief before you even start.
Yeah.
So on Sunday night, I went to this little comedy club right outside of Fenway Park in Boston called Stitches. And I walked in, it was, the sticky floor. You could smell the stale beer. I thought, this is cool. And I watched people go up for their first time. And Brian, they were horrible. Horrible. And I said, I can do that. I can do. So
Time out. Let's take a time out. We're going to say hello to the people that are on the call. So, good morning, Mark. Great to have you. And good morning, Eric. Yes, he's all about pizza. So he has an organization that he works for. It's called Pizza Liners. Perfect pizza crust, something like that. I'm sorry. I'm sure he'll correct me. Eric, please do that. But he also says, has something here to say. We react to our thoughts and ideas with skepticism and negativity. We need to learn to our intuition. Action. And I think that's what you talk about all the time, Aaron. Yeah. It was stage time.
Yeah, that's what my mentor said. The coolest part about my journey is I knew that I didn't know. So I was a sponge. I got this, Brian. Be a sponge.
Yeah.
Go to the people who've been there and done that. And, again, later on in my career, my ego got in the way. I was not a sponge. But right at the beginning, I was open and eager. And every headliner in Boston, listening to Jim Rohn and Brian Tracy all the time, they say, go to people who are the best. They think differently. They have different habits. And whenever I was around, Brian, in a stand-up comedy world, there's an opening act, a middle act, and a headliner. So as a wannabe, I was around the opening acts the most. So I was like a little kid, la, 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 la. I don't want to hear what they say because I don't want those bad ideas to go into my head. But when I was near a headliner, I'd be eavesdropping, even if I wasn't in the conversation. What'd they say? Do that. Oh, get that book. Oh, okay, do this. And the one thing they said over and over again was never turn down stage time. Never turn that opportunity to grow. In fact, I think you heard this before, Brian, but for the viewers here, I was in the back of a comedy club. There's a guy who was going up for his very first night. I've been doing stand-up for about a year and a half, and I was still only getting like 4 or 5 little tiny laughs, but it was tiny growth, but a year and a half. Anyway, this guy goes up his first night, kills. His name is Gary Gulman. He's now a famous comedian, but that night nobody knew him. Anyway, I'm sitting in the back of the room sitting next to my mentor, and I'm like disgusted. I'm like, oh. And I turned to my mentor, Vinny. I said, how do you know who's going to make it? And he said something brilliant. He said, it's simple. Whoever keeps going. And, we compare our journeys to other people's journeys, and that's not fair. We have different experience. Don't you dare compare. Yeah. No. Just it's your journey. You got different mentors, different background. So then he turned to me. He said, you've been listening to that stage time thing. You've been taking that to heart. I like that. I'm going to give you 5 minutes of stage time wherever I play. Now, as a wannabe, you got to understand this is huge because he's talking about a real show, 200 people laughing, drinking, in a good mood. That's much easier. At the beginning of the comedy world, you're at open mics in the back of a bowling alley with the TV on and 12 people listening. Like, that's hard, but you got to learn and earn your chops at the hard place. So this was huge. So he then said, I'm going to give you 5 minutes of stage time wherever I play. But then he leaned. So I'm like, yes, I sucked up to the right guy. But then he leaned in. He said, but if you ever ever turn down stage time, I will never help you again.
Really?
And that's when everything changed. That's when that shift in my head happened where I said, I lived in the fear that he would find out.
Hmm.
And he said, Darren, it's about getting up there. You don't have to be good. You have to go up. In fact, you have to go up to be good. So what he was saying to me was, I thought I had to be good to get booked, for have bookers. And he's like, no, you got to go up to get good. And that was a game changer. In fact, my license plate here in Las Vegas is stage time, because I never want to forget that one habit that in that moment changed, and that changed my trajectory.
Hmm. So if I were to ask you what is the biggest factor in your success, what would you tell me?
Discipline.
Discipline and consistency, or discipline as what do you mean?
I mean, well, number one, you got to be the sponge. Be the sponge to the right people. Like, you've got to find that mentor, find that person. And then whatever they say, discipline yourself to do it. They say, get this book. They say you got to get on stage. Basically they were saying, he was saying to me, you got to learn your way by failing. The more you fail, the better you get. So, picture this, Brian. There's 100 wannabes in New England, and there's maybe 3 open mic nights in the whole city. So that means there's 100 wannabes trying to get those open mic nights, because that's the only place. No one's going to give you time in a regular comedy club. You have to earn that way. You don't just, oh yeah, you're here, go. Like, I don't know you. Anyway, so that's why when I was, after my Subway failure, I started working at Bose Corporation. I worked in Cubeland, and one of the little company newsletters came across my desk, and I start reading, and all of a sudden it talks about this thing called Toastmasters. I'm like, what's that? And I start reading. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Here's a place I could get stage time during the day. Comedy clubs are only open at night. I could fail twice a day.
Right.
Okay. And so I walked into my very first Toastmasters club. There was maybe 12 people there. And I noticed something dramatically different from the comedy clubs. In fact, 3 things dramatically different from the comedy clubs. These people were warm, encouraging, and sober. So I immediately joined 4 Toastmaster clubs because I wanted to double my failure rate. If Vinny said, you got to get up more often, and I'm like, but don't I have to learn to be a writer? He's like, okay, yes. And first, you need to get up and get confident, because even if you do great writing, you're not going to be able to deliver it if your brain is freaking out because you're standing in front of 12 people who are drunk and you got these spotlights in your eyes. It doesn't matter how good your writing is, because nothing's going to come out right. You got to get comfortable. You got to own that environment. Yeah. And, I'm just so thankful, because that was a game changer for me. And that's what's led me here. And people like who are virtual presenters, like same thing, lens time. You got to learn how to talk to that lens, because it's weird, because you want to look down and look at the other people, and well, it's all about connection.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. It's hard to do, but it's important to do, because that's when we begin to have a better connection with people. It's when we get more calm, more confident in what we're saying. So, this is for me, it's taken me quite a while, but I'm sure you've been doing this a lot longer than I have. So you were much more skilled at it, and it shows. So tell me about some of the biggest obstacles you still are trying to overcome.
Ego.
How do you overcome that?
Have a good humbling experience.
Yeah.
The game changed obviously back in March of 2020. And one of the best things I did is I pivoted, creating this home studio. I'm like, this is going to be my new life. So I would buy 2 things from Amazon. I would buy 2 mics, and I would test. I'd send the other one back. I'd buy a couple lights, send the other one back. And anyway, it's just been a constant process. But anyway, going back to your question, I think when we think we know better and we stop being eager and learning. I had to shut off the TV. How simple is that? Shut off the TV. Well, I grew up in a household, we had the news on all the time. A hurricane is coming. The TV is on from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. Or a northeaster in New England, for 3 days. Well, this has been, since March. And it was only last week I heard a friend say, yeah, I got to stop watching so much TV. And, for me, single guy living at home, it's kind of like that background. It's that, that ambiance. So anyway, for me, it was shut off the TV and open a flipping book, So I grabbed 2 books. I was like, you know what? I got to work on Marketing Made Simple. Great book by Donald Miller. I'm a huge fan of his book, Building Your Story Brand. And this is a marketing one. So I literally, I check up on the news on what's happening, and then it's off.
All right. Hey, hang on. So we got to say hello to a few other people here. So Eric Bam says, Darren gets it. Bill Morrow. Do you know Bill?
I know Bill. I know that guy, Mark L. Brown, too.
Yeah. Norista. Well, it's so good to see Mark on and Bill as well, and everybody. I'm so glad to see people that are here and interacting. So if there are any questions you have for Darren, let's hit him up. Let's see what he can do to or what we can do to stump him. So that's awesome. But
and if there and you go any kind of presentations, Mark Brown is the greatest coach on the planet. Yeah. And he is the guy that after 9 years or 7 years as a Toastmaster, so I found Toastmasters in 94, 7 years, I was in 4 clubs working really hard, and that's when my ego got in the way. And since he's on, real quick, if it's okay, Brian, I discovered Mark Brown, the world champion of public speaking. I was sitting in the front row and taking notes when he was speaking, and I asked him if he would coach me, and he agreed. So he gave me a game plan, and I drove 2.5 hours to work with Mark. And we're in this little corporate office in New York, Reader's Digest. And we're in this little corporate room. And it's me, him, and my other coach who drove down with me. And I was so excited to hand Mark the greatest speech in the history of Toastmasters. I swear this was so good. As I handed it to Mark, you could hear choirs of angels. And Mark took the speech. And if you don't know Mark, he stands about 6'2", native of Jamaica. He's got this beautiful booming laugh like the guy from the old 7-Up commercial. Big heart. He takes a speech. He looks at it. Oh, Darren, we have some work to do. I did everything you told me to do. I wrote the greatest speech that I could write from the level I was at. But you don't know what you don't know. And that's honestly, that's one of the humblings I had going to the guy that I knew I was going to be a sponge to, but my ego thought I was better. If he gave me a couple tweaks, that would be great. And he gave me a whole schooling. And that's why it's one thing to learn from people who are at your level. It's another thing to learn from people who are world-class. Find those world-class coaches, authors. And if it wasn't for Mark, I wouldn't have that beautiful trophy back here when I won the world championship in 2001. And Mark's
awesome. There's the laugh from Mark. So, yeah, that's awesome. And, Darren, Eric Bam has sent a LinkedIn request to you. So I've put in your email address into the chat. So people were asking about it. So I want to make sure you know that I have prostitutized. Is that a right word? Can I say that?
You can. It's your show, man. It's your show. You do whatever. And Eric, I'll try and find. I'm not on LinkedIn too much, but I need to. That's one of those things on my list. Need to learn this. So I'm more on Facebook, but I want to be more on LinkedIn. So Eric Bam, I will remember that.
Bam. Yeah. Mr. Ego. So Bill Morrow is good comments there. So what is is Mark Brown correcting me?
Yes.
Well, he would be the right one for that.
Mark Brown, when he and I do webinars together, he actually shows a thing from his yearbook, a posting from his yearbook when his classmates said that he's always found with people gathered around listening to him because he's a natural born teacher. He said, but they people around him better bring their dictionaries. So whenever I'm listening to Mark Brown, I have this handy just so I can figure out some of the words he's using.
Maybe I need to work on that. I probably do. So let's see. Oh, blind spot alert. You've shut down Darren while he was on cold. I shut him down? Uh-oh. 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 Well, all right. Well, let me let you have the floor. I didn't know that I did that. So, yeah, so let's continue on.
You're fine. Give me a question. What do you want to know? What are we talking about here? If you're watching this, give me a question. Let me help you out.
Yeah, absolutely. So Darren is the best at helping people with their speeches, helping people to helping people to understand that they're not always delivering the message that they can or that they think they are. Sometimes I have blind spots, and Wes, thank you very much for pointing that out. That I did that. So I want to make sure that we continue to have good conversations with Darren. Believe it or not, we're already at about 27 minutes. I don't know where all the time went. So I probably because I interrupted you, Darren, and did that. So please, if there are questions from anybody on the call, by all means, let us know. If you're listening to this on a replay, put in hashtag replay, but also let us know if you have questions. So I'll go back to Darren after the fact, and we'll get to the answers. So we will definitely want to do that. Oh, wow. What a day. So this has been it's been great. I appreciate you being on, and we've got a lot of stuff to go over yet. But while we're waiting for the questions to come in, let's see here. Let's see. So we've got a couple of come in. So Mark says, what was the catalyst that led you to the ego shift?
You, my friend, the
Mark?
honesty. It was the holding up a mirror that Mark did, that he was kind and he was honest. Sometimes, I love Toastmasters, but a lot of Toastmasters are still too fluffy with their feedback. It's just where they're at. It's not a judgment on them, but we need truth or we're never going to grow. I've never had a mentor nice me into growth. It just doesn't happen. We need that truth. And the truth was my ego got in the way. And when he said, "Oh, Darren, we have some work to do," it hurt. It was painful, but it pierced through that ego. And it's like, okay, you're coming to this guy and you just want tweaks. Well, maybe you should have come with the mindset that you were open and eager. And Mark will attest, we almost went fisticuffs that day. That's how bad my ego was. Here I asked this guy for help. I drive 2.5 hours to work with him. And then I don't really want to hear what he had to say because that's work.
Yeah.
Our ego gets in the way of our own transformation, whether it's finances, relationships, business, any of that. So I don't know if that answers your question, Mark, but.
Yeah. Let's hear the next one. If you could change your championship speech for TI, what would you change for Toastmasters International?
Yeah, I've studied it and watched it a billion times. But honestly, I could change some of the words and I could have made it better. I edited out a few things, and then because I thought I had more time, I popped them back in. So I diluted the message a little, but here was the perfection of it. The perfection was in the connection. I was on stage. I was so connected to that audience. So I could say different words, but my connection was so deep because of what Mark said. Mark said, Darren, choose a child in your life. I don't have any children, so I chose my eldest nephew, Michael. He said, if you were going to die tomorrow, what one lesson that you learned from your life would you pass on to your nephew to help him through his? And I started writing down. He's like, no. take 3 days to think about this. I wrote every possible lesson I could, and it was the middle of the 3rd page that I wrote down, I became a comedian because I was willing to fail. Going back to Brian, that discipline, I was willing to fail. And it was that willingness to fail that made everything. So he said, whenever you present, put Michael in the 4th row. So a few years later, if I gave the same speech, it wouldn't be as good. Now it may be, but it was such a pure moment and such a transformational moment. It wasn't just winning. It was that shy, quiet kid who was told to shut up that finally had a voice, that finally made 2,000 people laugh. But I grew inside. You know, there's I don't know if you've ever read, Brian, have you ever read the book, Building Your Story Brand?
Yeah, with Donald Miller.
Yeah, one of the things he talks about in that book, which is brilliant, he says that moment at the end where Luke Skywalker blows up the Death Star. He said there's 3-4 things happening at one time. Luke proves to himself he can do it. Good wins over evil. But there's all of it because he has that self-doubt. Does he really have what it takes to be a Jedi? So in one moment, all these different pinnacles come together and are proven in one moment. And that's what it was for me. It wasn't just a speech contest. It was a self-actualization, a upping my own self-belief. That was huge. And it took me a year and a half to even accept that I won. You know, because I get that little voice inside my head saying, well, maybe all the other judges' forms didn't come in. You know, I don't know. Anyway, whatever it is.
Oh yeah. You know, there's plenty of stories you can tell yourself about, you know, the other contestants weren't that good or whatever. So yeah, once you get to the world championship of public speaking, I mean, you're at the top. So that's awesome. We got a question here from Leroy Cook. How does a wannabe speaker who's 81 years old cut it to the fast track? Be a sponge.
Get a coach. Mark L. Brown, who is on here, he was my coach. I have a website with a bunch of coaches on it. Mark was my coach. Mark is at the top of the list, but getaspeakingcoach.com. Seriously, Leroy, thanks for that question. I worked for 7 years trying to figure it out on my own, and it wasn't until I got a coach that I truly transformed. Because a coach has that ability to see those talents, those stories that are already inside you. In fact, I was sitting there with Mark after we finally worked things out, and I shut up and listened. And Mark's, I went through version 1 of my speech, and he said, we're missing something. Do you have any failure stories? And I said, well, I don't. I said, you know what, Mark, back in the day, I used to tell this joke about my Subway failure. He said, well, go ahead, tell me. And so so my joke was, I don't want to brag or anything, but, I bought a Subway sandwich shop. I don't want to brag, but I took a $60,000 debt in just 6 short months. I doubled that debt. I turned Subway Sandwich Shop into a nonprofit organization. And Mark was like, he turned into me. That's perfect. But see, the story was inside me, Leroy, and it took Mark to identify it and pull it out of me. It took Mark to get me to write a speech for my nephew. Without that guidance, I would have tried to win a speech contest like every other or most other people and trying to find what's that winning formula. But Mark pointed out it's not the winning formula. It's my life story, my voice, my experience, my delivery style. So Leroy, I own Stage Time University. Mark is one of my coaches. We have a cool program, but quite honestly, the fastest way to grow is work one-on-one with a coach.
Yep. I would definitely agree with that. So the help you've given me with the coaching that you've and Mark has helped me with, it's been phenomenal. So you are the real deal, and I will attest to, and I'll be a reference for you here, right here. Leroy, if that's something of interest to you, that you really want to do that fast track, I would agree with Darren and Mark. that you need to do that. So thank you for that. I appreciate the question. So yeah, Mark says the perfection is in the connection. So once you get connected, then you can continue to perfect. So once you build in the connection, I think is where the perfection comes. Would that how he say it?
Well, it's the connection is the authenticity. Authenticity. Mark says authenticity plus. Mark, I don't remember the quote. Put it in your quote. But authenticity builds credibility, and you can't be connected. I don't think your ego would allow connection. So it's no ego. I'm here for you. I'm reaching into. I want to help you. This isn't about me. This is about you. And as Mark says, it's my story, but it's for the audience. So Leroy, you got some stories, dude. But which ones are the best ones? Which ones are the ones you care about? So I'm going off on a tangent. I apologize, Brian.
But and we've already gone way over our times, and I appreciate the time you've given me. So, but there are some more questions that have come up. So, are you still doing comedy?
I'm on it. You woke me up so early. You might as well use me.
All right. Here we go. Bill says, "Are you still doing comedy?"
I do comedy twice a year. So sometimes at conventions, even Toastmasters, I'll do a comedy night. But as far as stand-up clubs, I do it twice a year. I have a humor boot camp. And at the humor boot camp, we teach it in a comedy club. We teach you comedy writing skills, but turned into clean professional humor. And so we take the writing exercises that I learned from one of my mentors, Dave Fitzgerald, and we teach 17 laughter generating exercises. So we literally write and try the comedy right there in the showroom during the day. At night, I bring the whole class to the showroom, and me and Kevin Burke, who is my co-teacher for that one, he's done the one-man show Defending the Caveman 4,000 times. So we bring the class to the show. But what's funny is they see me nervous, because stand-up is different from speaking, and it's like a muscle. If you don't use it, it atrophies. So even though, I'm telling some of the same stories, it's a different environment. So, but the cool thing is, even if I bomb, which I'm okay with, it becomes a teaching for the next day in class. So we spent the day with them in class. I do stand up. So to answer your question directly, twice a year, but that's pretty much it. I know my lane. But my buddy owns a comedy club here in Vegas, so once in a while I'll go do a spot just to scare myself and humble myself. Oh yeah, you kicked butt, didn't you?
That's good.
Comedy club. Let's see what you do now, funny boy.
Leroy has a question. He wants to know: does he need an SBA loan? I think it's where he's going with this. So does he need to have an SBA loan in order to be able to afford your coaching?
Well, if you go to getaspeakingcoach.com, you'll see the options there. I don't remember offhand. I think it's like $500 per session, something like that, for an hour sitting down one-on-one with the coach. But Mark, if you want to put the link in there or something, they can go check it out. So honestly, for the average coach, one session is not enough, but it would give you a taste to see what they can really do and what they can really work with. And then maybe, if you go more, so it might be 2,500, 3,500 if you do 3 or 4 months, but go check out the options. Seriously though, Leroy, if I'm working on a new story, I still get Mark Brown or Michael Haig to coach me on a new story, because it's a new story. We're too close, and we got to get those elements out there.
But there are other options in terms of the State Time University and all that. So those are much more reasonable. At least I think they're more reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, it's $47 a month.
Yeah,
you get access. We have live coaching calls every single week where Mark is one of the coaches, and you can get coached on that call. Now it's mini coaching. It's not the same as a one-on-one session, but it's actually get 2 coaches, about a half hour of feedback, something like 20 minutes to a half hour. So $47 a month if you go to stagetimeuniversity.com. We also have a business mastery, which we teach the business of speaking, Ford Sakes and me. That's $77 a month. But you can go and check it out. And if you got questions, shoot me an email, Darren at DarenLaCroix.com.
There's a webinar coming up with Ford Sakes, or is that already passed?
What's that?
You have a webinar with Forge 6, right?
That was last week. Yep.
Okay.
The recording's up though.
Okay. Let's see. Good. I'm glad you like it there. And here is Mark with the getaspeakingcoach.com. So that's where you go for the information that you mentioned. So awesome. Any other questions? Let me know. Again, if we're after the time, we'll come back to it. But again, Darren, thank you so much for being on today. This has been great information.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me. Seriously, I appreciate it. You're a good man. You're a funny man. And whoops, I'm Brian's fan.
Yeah, that's very nice. Very nice of you to say. So I appreciate that. I
have a question for you. Do you have one more minute?
Yeah.
I love, Brian with one eye. I want to know when you first did that, and tell me when you came up with the idea, or where the idea came from, and what was the first response when you tried that out? Come on, give it up.
So literally, I was still working in my IT sales job. So I was an IT salesman.
IT.
Right? Yeah. Information technology. Anyway, so I'm there and with another guy. In IT sales, you have a sales guy and you have a smart guy. So I'm there and
which were you?
Yeah, I'm not the smart guy. But we walk into this office and we walk up to the guard shack and we talk to the lady that was there, to sign us in. And I said who I'm there to see and everything. And she said, well, what's your name? And I said, well, my name's Brian Wagner. And she said, well, how do you spell that? And she put her head down in order to look at a name tag she was going to fill out for me. So she said, well, how do you spell that? And I said, well, that's Brian with one eye. And she didn't look up, so she didn't really realize what was going on. But smart guy next to me, I thought he was going to pee his pants. He absolutely loved it. So going home from that day, I mean, I realized that that's who I am. I'm Brian with one eye. So, and I've introduced this concept of this name to many other people, and they all have the same reaction. At first, it's kind of like, did he just say that? And then it's like they just bust out laughing. And so not everybody, but mostly they bust out laughing. So it's been great. Brian with one eye.
Thanks for sharing that story. That's a great story. Do you ever tell that story?
I do. I tell that in a part of my speech, part of my program, if you will. So it's where we begin to. Well, I have some different pictures that I show of me with a family, my family, and then I show them me winking, and I have a permanent wink, in case you didn't know. But then I have a picture where I've asked my family if they would wink with me. So in this picture, it shows them all trying to wink, and some of them wink better than others, but it is the most hilarious picture. So this Brian with one eye kind of is a continuation, or it really is the beginning of me getting more comfortable and having acceptance for who I am and what I have. So it's a great part of the story, and there's so much there that I can talk about. But not only is it something that I'm able to help people with from a perspective of acceptance, but it's also something that I'm able to help people with from a point of view of understanding what makes you unique. Understanding what makes you unique. So if I can help people to understand my uniqueness doesn't come from my eye. What makes me unique is my positive personality and how I'm able to share my story with other people and have a larger impact on their lives. So you can tell I've said this before. So it's part of my program and helping people to understand what makes them unique. So what I do is I have these selfies that I take. So I pull up a camera and we take a selfie. And in the selfie, I encourage the other person with me in the selfie to wink. No, it's not about them making fun of me. I want them to start to understand, well, if this guy next to me knows what makes him unique, and it's not his eye, I wonder what makes me unique. That's a really good moment to be able to have with people. So,
you're an inspiring dude, man.
Well,
hey, by the way, you have to forgive me when you tell that story. Get us to picture the woman. Give us just a couple little details so we can picture her, so we're more in the moment. Or just say, picture us. We're standing there, with this woman. So just give us a little detail to picture it better, and it'll make the story even better. Forgive me, I can't not coach.
Man, and this is free.
Yeah. I'm Darren with 2 R's. RR.
RR.
Which makes me.
All right, we have comments that have come on. So Susan Dahl, hurting, suffer, stranded, lost. That's the one, the inner cost. Pull it out and gut yourself. Don't keep trying you on the shelf. Doesn't get the truth. You need plant potential. Grow the seed. What do you make of that, Darren?
I got nothing. It's just, I have no doubt it's good. I'm just not clear.
Yeah. Tell us more, Susan. Tell us more.
Tell us more.
Mark says, it's Stateside University /get-a-speaking-coach. There you
go. Getaspeakingcoach.com will go there.
Oh, will? Okay.
I think. Oh, not with the S in it. That was the problem. Getaspeakingcoach.com will forward to that one, but not if you put the S in there.
The
anyway,
where was the S at? HTTPS? That S?
Yeah.
Okay.
HTTPS with 1 S.
Gotcha.
Gotta be
all these rules about spelling. I am learning so much today. This is phenomenal. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time, Darren.
Hey, you're welcome.
We still haven't gotten all my questions, but we'll save them for another time. Are you willing to come back on?
I'll come back. We can keep going if you want. It's your call. It's your show.
Well, let's see.
Hey, by the way, Susan just said inner pain tells the best story. Yes. Yes. Okay. One caution on that. You have to have overcome the pain in order to talk about it. Otherwise, because some speakers will actually, and we've seen it, I've done it, where we actually use the stage for therapy. So you have to have come out of it and transformed. Then you can talk about it. So the subway joke was not funny, and I shouldn't have been talking about it like the next 6 months to a year because I hadn't healed from it. But once you do heal, if you have the confidence to go back and talk about that pain, yes, Susan, 1,000,000,000%.
And don't use the stage for therapy, according to Mark Brown. So yeah, so I have had a brain bleed recently back in November. And it caused me to have a little more of a speech impediment, but I'm not letting that stop me. So you may have heard me stumble over a few different words that I've used. I haven't used enough. So that's really, but I'm okay with it. I have recovered from that inner hurt or that inner pain. So I know it's important for us all to understand how we don't want to use the stage as a therapy tool, but if you can overcome it, and you've already have, like Darren said, that's really good. It's a great place to talk from. Let's see who else here. Oh, Mark has get out of the dark place before you share your painful story. Yeah. Agreed. Well, again, thank you so much. Well, if there are other questions coming in, please type them in. But I want to ask you, Darren, how do you do this? You got up really early in the morning. I'm sure it upset your morning routine. So talk to me about your morning routine that you have.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I've changed it not too long ago. When sometimes we stop doing what works. We have something in our life that works, and then we just stop doing it. I don't know why. Like maybe we take it for granted or something. But when back in 2001 when I was working on my own self-identity before the contest. Like, I didn't believe I deserved it. And so I used to make fun of like Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen, not them, but make fun of affirmations. I just thought that was a bunch of crap. I'm like, affirmations, schmaffirmations. And then when I got to the higher levels of the speech contest and I was one of 9 finalists, I was like, what if they do work? So I was like, I didn't want to regret. So I started writing out every day, a full page of paper, every line. I'm the 2001 world champion of public speaking. I'm the 2001 world champion of public speaking. So I write that out every day. So recently I got back to, I have what I call God formations, where I have passages from the Bible that I just say about my own self-identity, who I am, and I deserve it because I'm his. And then I write out some affirmations of what I'm working on. So right now, my next big dream is I'm working on a movie script that I wrote, took me 7 years to write. Now I'm trying to sell it to Hollywood. So I'm going to get rejected a lot. So I've got to work on that. And what do I want to make happen? So I do my affirmations. I pray in the morning. I'm starting to do a little bit of meditating that I picked up from Craig Valentine, just to be able to heal my body more and let my body do what it's supposed to do. Do my coffee, this is early, so that's why I have it here. Usually I don't have one while I'm sipping on a call, but I just want to make sure I'm awake. I dive in, get all my, now what I'm doing is, for my big dream, I'm doing at least 17 minutes every day of progress towards my dream. And some days it turns into 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour. But at least if I do 17 minutes, I just start a little clock, totally focused on that. And if no psychology behind it. 17 was my high school football practice number. My whole goal is just sit down and intentionally start totally focused. Everything else is off. And then, so I've been writing, and now I have it, I think right over, just out of reach. But I had Michael Haig, one of our other coaches, script.
Okay,
We've been coaching points. So right now, my 17 minutes, I'm just going through the coaching points, fixing the script. But then I got to get to rejecting. I'm afraid of that part, but I want to get the better version out there. Anyway, long answer.
Wow.
And then clean up emails, and then go for my list of what I got to do to fix my business and build my business. So
that's awesome. Susan Dahl has a question here.
Yes, Susan.
And she says, how do you introduce new material?
Great question. Sandwiched in between tried and true material. So you, number one, I get coached feedback from either Mark Brown, Michael Haig, or Mike Davis. And so I will run the story by them. I'll actually go try it at a Toastmasters club or several Toastmasters club. Every year, Mark and I have this big event called Game Changers that comes up in March. You can check that out, stagetimeworkshops.com. Those are all of our workshops. Anyway, because I have the same audience every year, I have to create new content, which forces me to come up with a new keynote each year for my own people. But I go to 12 different Toastmaster clubs here in Vegas. Now I'll do it virtually, but get feedback from them before I bring it to my audience. But if you're, never try brand new material on a paid audience.
Yeah.
You got to be really confident, but you sandwich, I know this works. So you put it somewhere in the middle so it makes sense, come up with a transition to smoothly transition so it makes sense. But then if it doesn't work and dies, or that confuses people, you go right into the strong material that works.
Yeah. So that was Susan's question. Mark's question here.
Hold on 1 second. And crave feedback on that new material. Don't just ask it. Well, what did you think of this story? Oh, that was nice. That doesn't do you any good. Crave it. What did you like about it? What was confusing about it? We've got to be eager, because again, the most important part of a presentation is the thought process in the listener's mind. So it's not our story. It's our story affects their thoughts. Brian?
Good. Yeah. So Mark says, his question is, what prize do you receive for winning the public speaking championship? Yeah.
You get a 35-pound piece of lucite. And that's it. because there's 300,000 Toastmasters around the world, you get a lot of invitations for free speeches. Yeah. And so there's no prize money, which I'm glad, because then there'd be the wrong motivation. Mm-hmm. Still the wrong motivation, because some people do it for ego and having that, and they think it's going to change their career. If you commit to the process will make you a better speaker, win, lose, or draw. Brian, I think you know Rory Vaden. He's somebody who came in second in the world championship and probably earned 1 billion times more than I have. So there's people who haven't won, who have better, bigger businesses, and there are people who have won that they chose not to pursue it, or it didn't work out, that they don't have a full-time professional career. Again, not a judgment, it's a choice. Yeah. But it's a business. If you want to do this for a living, it's a business. Make no mistake. So there's no prize money, a lot of free speech invites. And the cool thing I had for that was I already had a book. I already had an audio program, Learn How the Pros Make Them Laugh. So when I did speak for free, I could sell in the back of the room. And then because I love teaching, I just created more and more programs answering the problems that my audience told me they had. So I teamed up with Mark Brown. I teamed up with Patricia Fripp in order to create some programs to help people. And that's how that turned into Stage Time University, because people didn't have DVD slots anymore in their computers.
Well, so Mark is agreeing with everything you've said, and so committing to the process, it'll make you a better speaker. So, yeah, that's good. Good advice. All good advice. Thank you so much for all this. Mark Brown being on the comment section has been just an added bonus. Everybody else being on it to be asking questions are an added bonus as well. So thank you so much for joining in the conversation. So, Darren, thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
This has been great, and we'll still do it again, because there's more questions.
You know how to find me.
All right, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to send you to the green room if that's okay. And
absolutely.
I'll come back, and I'll talk to you here in a little bit.
All right.
Thanks, Darren. Wow, what another great interviewee. I'm like, oh my gosh, how does that happen? We're already, it's almost been an hour. This is supposed to be a 30-minute show. So incredible. Thank you so much, Darren, for being on. And again, we've got another call coming up in about a half an hour. And this call is Stroke of Genius. So again, we're talking with Matt. And what Matt and I were going to talk about is how he has overcome mental illness, or how he's working with mental illness. I don't think he ever overcome it. But it's important for us all to recognize that. So please join us at 11:30 back here, and we will all talk to you soon. But as always, remember to keep one eye on the road.